Hey everyone, my name is Rob. I'm going to go over the 15 steps of blood flow through the heart and do a quick drawing of the heart. It's not going to be pretty, but hopefully it can help you at least enough come test time because you could get this drawing out there on your actual test paper, and it really will be a good aid to remembering these 15 steps. This is kind of a combination of things that I've seen on YouTube and just some other various places. So this is kind of what gave me the idea, but anyways, I'm going to go ahead and draw this here for you. That would be the cat who really wants to be a part of this process. So the reason I'm kind of drawing it a little quickly here too is that when you are taking a test, the last thing you really have time to do is draw like this beautiful portrait. And the other thing that you'll notice is I'm not really drawing in the different valves and that kind of thing. We're going to draw them in later. It's not really that important right now. So anyways, there's our basic heart. We're going to start off with blood flow into the heart. So it's coming in via the inferior vena cava as well as the superior vena cava. And that blood is going to enter into the right atrium. So that is our step one. Now from the right atrium, the blood is going to get pushed through a valve, and that valve is right here, and that's called the tricuspid valve or the right atrioventricular valve. So tricuspid or right atrioventricular valve. I like atrioventricular better personally, as does my professor, just because it's aptly named for the atrium, the ventricle, the valve. It's the atrioventricular valve. It just makes a lot of sense. So step 3, that blood is then getting pushed into the right ventricle. Again, not to scale, right ventricle in my picture is ginormous. It's not that big in real life, so just you'll survive. From the right ventricle, when the heart contracts, the blood is going to get pushed up and out into the pulmonary trunk. Before it gets there, though, it has to go through a valve. This valve here is called the pulmonary valve. My professor requires that we know it is the pulmonary semilunar valve, and semilunar simply indicates the shape of the valve itself. So again, pulmonary semilunar valve. So that's step number 4. Step number 5, once the blood gets through that valve, is going into the pulmonary trunk. Once it's in the pulmonary trunk, it is going to branch out into the left and right pulmonary arteries. So step 6, left and right pulmonary arteries. Now, artery does mean away from the heart. Away. You can kind of remember it that way. It doesn't have to be oxygenated or deoxygenated. It can be either. It just means it's going away from the heart. So via the pulmonary arteries, the blood is going to head straight to step number 7, which is the lungs. That is where the gas exchange is going to occur, and all your red blood cells are going to pick up their oxygen. Now, I didn't draw the veins here, Sorry about that. So your oxygenated blood is going to return back into the heart through the pulmonary veins, and that is step number 8. Sorry about my terrible handwriting. So from the pulmonary veins, the blood is going to pool into another atrium, and in this case it is the left atrium. Step number 9. Number 10, from the left atrium, it's got to go through another valve. And now this particular valve has a lot of names. You can call it the mitral valve, the bicuspid valve, or the left atrioventricular valve. So we're going to write down mitral, bicuspid, or again, the one I prefer is left atrioventricular valve. Okay, so step number 11, it goes through the mitral, atrio, left, whatever valve you want to call it. Step number 11 is that it goes into the left ventricle. Once the heart contracts, pushes the blood out of the left ventricle, of course it's got to go through another valve, and this valve is very similar to the pulmonary semilunar valve, except this is called the aortic semilunar valve. Again, semilunar just meaning the shape, and aortic because it's going into the aorta. So step number 13, and really 13 through 15 is where it could kind of get different for your professor, just depending on what they want you to call the aorta and the blood flow through it. So in this first part where the blood is going in a superior direction, that is called the ascending aorta. So from the ascending aorta, step number 14 is that the blood is going to curve around at the top here, and we're calling that the aortic arch. So number 14 is aortic arch. It is going to branch off here into different branches and go up to the top of the body, the brain, you know, all those kinds of things. And lastly, number 15 is after the blood comes around the aortic arch, it's going to continue to travel down the aorta and then branch off into different smaller arteries and that kind of thing, go off to the rest of the body. So step number 15 is simply aorta. And that is it. 15 steps. Blood flow through the heart. Just to recap really quickly. There goes the cat again, sitting on the paper this time. Alright, let's relocate Kitty. So she's just going to be an onlooker. Again, just to recap really quickly, blood coming in from the superior and inferior vena cava into the right atrium, through the atrioventricular valve, which is again the right atrioventricular valve, into the right ventricle, through the pulmonary semilunar valve, to the pulmonary trunk, left and right pulmonary arteries. Then blood goes to the lungs. That's where the oxygen exchange happens. Can't see it in this picture, but that is step number 7. 8 is to come back into the heart through the pulmonary veins, into the left atrium, through the mitral, bicuspid, or left atrioventricular valve, into the left ventricle, through the aortic semilunar valve, ascending aorta, aortic arch, and finally into the aorta. So hopefully this was helpful. Yeah, just let me know if you have any feedback or anything. Hopefully, again, it was helpful and you can use it come test day.